Dr. Edie Eger is one of the most beautiful divine women on the planet today. And she survived the worst circumstances, something that most of us can't even ever imagine.
May 22nd, 1944, when I arrived in Auschwitz, there was chaos. My father was separated from us and my sister and I facing Dr. Mengele. I didn't know who he was until later. And he pointed to my mom to go to the left and my sister and I to the right. I asked the inmate, when will I see my mother? And she pointed at the chimney and fire was coming out of the chimney. And she said, you better talk about your mother in past tense, she's burning there. My sister and I hugged each other and said, the spirit never dies, the spirit never dies. I remember that so vividly, even today. In Auschwitz, we didn't know when we took a shower whether water is going to come out or gas. And then there were others who ran into the barbed wires, they got electrocuted. And that night, Dr. Mengele came to the barracks and wanted to be entertained. And my friends who knew that I was a very talented gymnast, and so they volunteered me and I ended up dancing for Dr. Mengele. I closed my eyes and the music was Tchaikovsky and I was dancing in Budapest, the Romeo and Juliet. I completely dissociated. And we had choices. I chose to look at the guards, that they were more in prison than I was. I remember they took my blood about twice a week, and I asked, why are you taking my blood? And the man said, I'm taking your blood to aid the German soldiers so we can win the war. I said to myself, I was a pacifist, I was a ballerina, I bet with my blood you're never gonna win the war. So I created a part in me that I was able to still be in charge of and not allowing anything what happened externally to murder my spirit. I remember I said, if I survive today, then tomorrow I'll be free.
I remember when Marita came to the shadow process and everybody was looking for the negative qualities they needed to embrace. Marita couldn't even say hers, and I kept asking, what is so horrible that you can't even say it? And she said, because of my background, mine is that I'm a Nazi.
I was born in Germany in 1955, 10 years after the war. I found out when I was 11 or 12 what my country had done. This is a subject we never talked about. My grandfather wouldn't tell me about his experience. My mother wants nothing to do with this. I'm not the only German that holds this and lives this and hides this. And I found many ways to sabotage myself from ever tasting power or success because, you know, Hitler was successful to coming to power and that power was horribly abused. I didn't interact with any Germans at all. I stayed away from them, and I did not want to interact with any Jewish person because I didn't want to cause any more pain, and I was ashamed.
Samya was willing to shine light on the darkness and willing to take back her own projections for the good of all humanity.
In 2006, when Israel bombed Lebanon, at the time I was trying to evacuate members of my family and try to bring them over to the US, and there were no news. You needed to figure out how to reach to them. I became so angry again because here is my family and the bombing. One day I was watching TV. I saw girls crying, little girls. I saw they were Lebanese girls. And of course, you know, every time I saw like Lebanese kids being bombed and everything, I was really, really angry. I was like, you know, yes, 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 like bomb the bastards kind of thing. And at the end, I realized they were reporting from the Israeli border, on the other side of the border. And they looked exactly the same as the Lebanese girl that were killed on the other side of the border. And I saw the pain. And that day I made a commitment to myself that I will no longer tolerate that kind of cruelty, irrespective of which side of the border it's happening.
Now, I'm not saying that if you and I rise up to become the people that we are capable of being, that we will rid this planet of war in our lifetime. But I believe with all my heart, we will achieve enough this lifetime that humanity will go in that direction.
It's embracing authentically who you are and not being ashamed of it. There's nothing to be ashamed of because everybody has a shadow. If somebody doesn't, they must be pathological.
When I'm leading the shadow process, it feels like my own journey has come full circle.
I've been very judgmental over the years. I was having some really dark dreams about you last night.
They're all true.
When we embrace our totality, we experience freedom.
My heart feels as big as my body. It's no longer like little anymore. It's like, it's me.
And embrace it with love. Love, because that's what we're here for, to give and receive love.
Can't even believe that's you, Margaret. I figured out who you were. I remember. If I hadn't faced my darkness, I never would have found my light. Can't let my makeup
Our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? But actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small doesn't serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
Consider the story of the Golden Buddha. In 1957, a monastery in Thailand was being relocated and a group of monks was put in charge of moving a giant clay Buddha. In the midst of the move, one of the monks noticed a crack in the Buddha. Concerned about damaging the idol, the monks decided to wait a day before continuing with their task. Later on, one of the monks came to check on the giant statue. He shined his flashlight over the entire Buddha, and when he reached the crack, he saw something reflected back at him. His curiosity aroused, the monk got a hammer and a chisel and began chipping away at the clay Buddha. As he knocked off piece after piece of clay, the Buddha got brighter and brighter. After hours of work, the monk looked up in amazement to see standing before him a huge solid gold Buddha. Historians believe the Buddha had been covered with clay by Thai monks several hundred years earlier before an attack by the Burmese army. They covered the Buddha to protect it. In the attack, all the monks were killed. So it wasn't until 1957 that the great treasure was discovered. Like the Buddha, our outer shell protects us from the world. Our real treasure is hidden within. We human beings unconsciously hide our inner gold under a layer of clay. All we need to do to uncover our gold is to have the courage to chip away at our outer shell, piece by piece.
You can't fight darkness with darkness, but you can switch on the light.
All of the work we do on the shadow is to get us to this point where we can forgive. To do forgiveness, we put blindfolds on to make it safe for people to share their deepest secrets.
I forgive myself.
I forgive myself.
I forgive myself for not finishing college.
I forgive myself.
For beating up my sister.
I forgive myself.
I forgive myself for hating my body.
For screaming at my kids.
For not laughing enough.
For thinking I'm a stupid, incompetent asshole.
For stealing from my first boss.
For being rich. For being beautiful.
I forgive
For drinking
myself.
too much. Not speaking out.
I forgive
For
myself.
not laughing enough.
I forgive myself.
Forgive myself. For lying, for cheating, binging on my diet.
I forgive myself.
Forgive
I
myself.
forgive myself. Forgive myself.
I forgive myself for everything. You are forgiven. You are forgiven. You are forgiven. You are completely forgiven.
Doamna doctor, aceste umbre, aceste traume pot să fie individuale, dar pot să fie și la nivel de grupuri sociale, așa, să fie un fel de umbre colective, da? Și se manifestă tot sub formă de boli, cum ar veni. Dar ce boli avem dacă sunt colectivități? Dureri, suferințe la nivelul unui neam, unui popor, nedreptăți sociale, economice, pot să fie războaie, că am văzut în filmulețe, pot să fie sărăcie, foarte multe, tot un fel de boli, că și sărăcia e un fel de boală a unui popor.
Bolile sociale.
Bolile sociale, exact.
Și cele fizice în organismul nostru.
Da,
individual.
exact. Deci tot aia e, cumva că suntem cumva în macro. Acum, dacă ar fi că noi suntem medici de medicină holistică, să ne uităm care este umbra colectivă a poporului român, da? Care este, doamna doctor? Care este cauza de suntem noi așa? Sau ce mască avem, ce rană avem? Hai să identificăm. Ce traumă avem? Ce ascundem? Ce rană? Care e rana profundă?
Este foarte dureroasă și este foarte veche. Avem cei 40 de ani de comunism,
Da.
și încă cei 20 de ani post-revoluție și încă nu ne-am vindecat. Suferința s-a adâncit.
Exact, pentru că de fapt ce s-a întâmplat la Revoluție n-a făcut decât să pună sare pe rană și nici măcar nu ne-am pus-o noi, știți? Adică practic n-a fost o vindecare la Revoluție corectă, a fost decât o amânare a vindecării. A fost decât că ne-am prefăcut, că ne-am vindecat, ne-am tratat, decât știți că diferența între a ne trata și a ne vindeca. Deci, practic, noi suntem bolnavi de vreo 60 de ani, peste 60 de ani, noi avem o rană aici foarte... Un blocaj, da. Acum, haideți să analizăm, doamna doctor, așa cum facem noi holistic, da, la pacienții noștri. Este un blocaj, e clar că este un blocaj, pentru că este o rană, da? Și ține de mult, ține de 60 de ani. Deci, din punctul nostru de vedere, cum ar fi, yin sau yang?
Păi, dacă nu avem acțiune și avem lipsă de mișcare, suntem blocați în yin.
Păi da, atunci e și normal să fim blocați în yin, pentru că dacă știm, și aș vrea să ne uităm aici, noi practic știți că se deschide chakra României, chakra inimii, chakra iubirii, de fapt a terei în România. Deci noi avem, prin deschiderea acestei chakre, într-adevăr este o cantitate extraordinar de mare de iubire de yin. Bun, dar e prea mult atunci. Știți? Dacă este prea mult, că e stagnare, pentru că este blocaj. Acum, cum s-ar exprima această iubire? Care ar fi cuvântul cheie care ar exprima această iubire foarte mare, stagnantă? Deci un fel de bunătate excesivă, da. Acum, deci așa se spune și despre noi, că suntem un popor bun, știți? Adică există și cuvântul blajin. Știți? Blajinii, există și un termen cunoscut aici. Acum auzim, pacienții noștri spun să fie bine, să fie bine. Ați auzit cuvântul ăsta, da? Facem cum facem, da, să fie bine. Păi să fie bine, dar cui să fie bine? Că nu ne e bine. Adică nu știu cum facem noi să ne fie bine, dar nu ne e bine. Și atunci, în general, ce este mult strică, unde este mult, că este, chiar dacă e iubire, dar ce e multă strică,
este
știți?
o bunătate patologică.
E o bunătate patologică, este o bunătate bolnăvicioasă, vicioasă, virusată. Bun, acum, e clar că suntem într-o direcție greșită. De ce? Pentru că de 60 de ani acest popor nu a crescut la nivel de, să zicem, societate, la nivel economic, la nivel social, deci nu ne merge bine, clar. Deci nu suntem pe drumul drept, nu suntem pe autostradă, suntem în, cum se spune, în pădure. Așa. Bun, acum, cu ce seamănă lucrul ăsta? Seamănă cam cum afraierism, așa, știți? Adică duce până, când este ceva care nu e bine, duce până la prostie, adică, nu știu, duce până la prea mult, e prea mult.
Știți că o vorbă,
da.
Omul prea bun e luat de prost.
De fraier, da, exact. Acum, poporul german, hai să facem o analogie. Noi suntem prea buni. Poporul german știți că a fost mai spartan, așa. Adică e cumva yang-ul, e partea opusă noastră. El este un exces yang, da, de-a lungul timpului. Și ei au ajuns în trecut chiar la agresiune, cum ajunge yang-ul. La mișcare foarte mult, au cucerit, au invadat, știți, am văzut filmuleț, Auschwitz și tot ce s-a întâmplat acolo. Noi suntem în extrema cealaltă, dar noi suntem din lac în puț, știți? Adică suntem în extrema cealaltă a poporului german, adică prea buni. Așa, știți că e și vorba aceea, reclama aceea, prea bun, prea ca la țară. Acum trebuie să, nu e bine nici așa, trebuie să evoluăm, să ajungem și noi ca la oraș, ca la poporul german, pentru că poporul german trebuie să știți că și-a depășit această formă de extremă yang și deși sunt ei așa, par mai sufletește, sunt un pic parcă diferiți decât noi, trebuie să știți că ei au progresat foarte mult. Poporul german este un reper, la ora asta ocupă un statut din cele mai, dacă nu chiar fruntaș, la nivel european. Adică e un exemplu bun de urmat în acest moment. Acum, practic...
Trebuie să compensăm această bunătate excesivă, să aducem pe lângă ea puțină fermitate.
Exact! Deci cu asta vindecăm, cu fermitate. Acum, rana bunătății excesive. Eu vreau să vă întreb, dacă aceasta este rana, care ar fi masca? Și care ar fi masca și care ar fi percepția greșită? Pentru că, dragi telespectatori, noi avem așa, o rană sufletească care reprezintă trauma noastră, după aia o percepție a ego-ului nostru despre această rană, că de fapt nu ne place de rană. Deci noi nu ne place că suntem așa și ascundem acest lucru, băgăm cu noi o supreș. Și acest lucru este o percepție greșită. Care ar fi această percepție greșită?
Ar fi lașitatea.
Exact. Noi undeva ce nu vrem noi să recunoaștem, pentru că noi suntem de fapt, cum să vă spun, nu vrem să auzim despre asta, este că noi de fapt ne considerăm un popor laș. Eu am discutat cu foarte mulți pacienți de-ai noștri și ei toți considerăm că de fapt că suntem lași. Dar este decât o proiecție acest lucru.
A minții noastre.
A minții noastre, pentru că nu este corect. Noi, de fapt, suntem foarte blajini, deci nu vrem să facem rău. Știți, ca uriașul acela care nu vrea să facă rău când se mișcă, că s-ar putea să omoare ceva, o insectă în jur, un fluturaș, o albinuță și nu vrea să facă rău în bunătatea lui. Dar care ar fi atunci masca? Ce mască avem așa? Cum suntem noi percepuți? Cum ne dăm noi că suntem buni la nivel european? Păi, fată bună, că am tot văzut măștile. România e o fată bună, adică o femeie generoasă, așa, care este foarte drăguță cu toată lumea în sinceritatea ei, care nu mai e sinceritate, în fraierismul ei, adică.
Ar trebui să permitem să nu mai fim răniți.
Exact. Ar trebui, dragi telespectatori, să nu mai permitem altora sau chiar nouă înșine să ne mai rănim.
I think a lot of people are very afraid of their shadow. They don't even want to consider that they have one.
Brent is one of the holiest men that I know, and he is so spiritually evolved because he uses the pain of his past to be the greatest expression of himself today.
This story really began for me when I was 9 years old, and I was attending a summer camp that was managed by an order of religious men. During that summer, I was molested by one of the religious men. I remember that experience being a beginning of a split for me from myself. It happened a number of other times during that period of time I was at that camp. I was always afraid that guy was going to come in the middle of the night. I even went so far as to borrow a knife from someone that I kept under the pillow. This is a 9-year-old kid. I remember I just felt like some part of me died at that time. I went on with my life, holding on to that secret, holding on to that shame of not really being connected with myself anymore. The difference between forgiving and condoning. Forgiving is seeing the true heart of another person. It's beyond all the action. In holding anybody to blame, we limit our own love. People need to know that they can get help, that they don't have to carry their shame alone, that they don't have to live in a secret, and that there are people that are holding the light for them, that are willing to see them as they are through the shadow. It's the only way to see yourself, is to look at the light and the darkness and to embrace it. I use that analogy of being like a drowning person, where someone's holding your head underwater, and at some point you realize that you have to be the one that fights your way back to the surface. What happened to me as a child has given me a real depth of compassion, which I'm so grateful for, because it's so clear to me when I work with people how they're suffering, how they're hiding, and it's been the greatest gift of my life that I'm in a position where I can honor people in that way. I'm just so grateful to be able to connect with people on that most vulnerable level, that deepest level of the soul. I regained my faith because I asked for it.
Forgiveness doesn't happen in your head until it happens in your heart.
My mom was walking downtown Beirut with the young Israelis, and she turns to my dad, and her mother had been killed by the Israelis. She goes, "Mustafa, these are young soldiers, don't they have a mother? And if she can forgive, who are we not to forgive?"
Well, you can't move on if you don't forgive. The train stops if you don't forgive. And mostly, you got to forgive yourself for taking whatever happened to you too deep, to a deep place that it shut you down.
The universe will deal with that person's karma. You don't have to worry that if you, quote unquote, forgive them, that they're going to somehow live an undeserved, wonderful life.
Each and every one of us needs to work full-time on self-forgiveness.
Our motivation to forgive is increased when we understand why it's so important. It's not just to make their day better, it's to free you.
And forgiveness is the hallway between the past and the future.
The future expression of who we are as a planet, as our country in America, depends on the people that grow up, that become the next presidents, that become the next politicians, economists.
We want to make a difference. We want to somehow get it right, to feel like we did, or at least we tried to do what we came here to do. That is the gold that is being mined today.
But that's because the world is growing. We're entering a new age. That's what's going on. That's why we're talking about this.
You are a force of love. You are made from love. And love is the most forceful energy you could ever have. Accept that energy. Accept who you are. Accept your inheritance, if you will.
You're the total being of love, and don't waste a minute of it.
I've come full circle, and this is the external of what was going on inside of me.
It's how we are able to perceive everything in life as an opportunity for growth. I got married, I have 3 children and 5 grandchildren and 1 great-grandson, and that's the best revenge to Hitler. You are here. You and I are here, yes.
So if you want authentic peace of mind, creativity, kindness, compassion, joy, then you've got to understand your shadow and be okay with it. Celebrate it.
If shadows could talk, they would tell us that we're as precious as 1,000,000 pounds of gold, that our brightest light can shine only when we've accepted our darkness, that there is wisdom in every wound, that there is a greater future waiting for us, that we are children of God and have a right to be here, that we were all created equal, that our pain is not personal, but belongs to every man and woman alive. That life is a magical journey of making peace with both our humanity and divinity. They would tell us that we deserve better, that we matter, that we are more than we ever dreamed possible, and that there's light at the end of the tunnel, that there is nobody in the world quite like you. What if you knew in every cell of your body that you were living a divine plan, a plan so important, so vital for the evolution of humankind? What if you knew that everything that was happening right now that doesn't fit your ego ideals is happening to support you in stepping out of the smallness of your darkest thought into the brilliance of your biggest dream? If you take this journey, I promise you that you're going to experience more love, more happiness than you've ever had before.
Până data viitoare, vă dorim
armonie în suflet,
să fiți credincioși și sănătoși.